She looked at the palm print and started telling us what happened.
This time on Unexplained Mysteries, psychic crime solvers.
It's like looking at a big screen movie that I'm in the middle of.
We don't know how it works. If we did, it wouldn't be mysterious.
With our case studies, you'll meet 5 women with uncanny abilities.
The data checked out all the way down the line.
The detectives who work with these psychics.
After 5 minutes with her, she told me enough stuff that she had 100% of my attention.
The family members desperate for answers.
You're haunted every moment that you live and breathe.
You'll witness the psychic's visit to the crime scene.
The minute that I get near the scene, it seems like the blood is rushing through my body and saying to me, this is what happened to this girl, this is who did it to her, this is what he looks like.
The touch that reveals a clue.
He shot me. I know I'm on the floor. My back seems to be hurting me a great deal, and I died.
The twist of fate that started with a lightning strike.
I began dreaming, seeing pictures, which I know now is clairvoyance.
The psychic's message to a killer.
I'm gonna come after you until I get you.
And the tragic case of a missing child.
She grabbed my arm and she said, Tim, find the dog and you'll find Victoria.
It was a situation that I'll never forget as long as I live.
And we'll bring it all together in our UnEx Report. Right here on Unexplained Mysteries, Psychic Crime Solvers. Police work involves cold facts and hard evidence. Detectives study crime scenes, interrogate witnesses, and analyze evidence. But when traditional investigations lead nowhere, they sometimes turn to psychics.
The only way I ever get involved is if the police call me. If they don't, I will not work on a case.
Dorothy Allison is a unique breed of psychic. Her extrasensory skills are so keen that she has been called on to work on a number of high-profile cases. The Son of Sam, John Wayne Gacy, Atlanta child murderer Wayne Williams.
With a single murder, you're dealing with a single victim and a single murderer. With a serial killer now, you're dealing not only with a smart person, but a very devious, cunning person. And then you've got so many people, so many visions, so many faces all at once.
The visions are sometimes cryptic. Even Dorothy doesn't fully understand them.
And talking to Dorothy, you have to sort of interrogate her like a suspect. She sees locations, and you have to narrow these locations down to find what you're looking for.
December 1978, Chicago. The bodies of 33 boys are found beneath the house of John Wayne Gacy. But one body is missing. Dorothy is called in to help. She has a vision. You will find the body on April 9th, near a bridge by a river.
I was sitting at my desk, phone rang, it was a sheriff from a small county near this bridge. And he said, you better get down here. We found a body in the river down here. We think it's that boy you're looking for. And I looked at my desk calendar, and it was April 9th.
My goal is to see how many killers can I knock down. It's like a game with me now. I love getting a killer. I really do.
If you'll ever see evil in a killer, it'll be in his eyes. In Dorothy's eyes, I see hope.
Nancy Myer first discovered her psychic ability as a young girl. While on a trip overseas, she found that she could read the minds of people, no matter what language they spoke.
I discovered that if I got in the person's head, I could get the sense of what they were saying. So I used my ability quite a bit to follow conversations in languages that I didn't know.
As her gift continued to develop, she reluctantly started working with the Delaware State Police.
It's very overwhelming. It's kind of hard for people to understand that when a person who is as sensitive as I am does a reading, I have to use a very strong system of blocking within me in order to keep the victim's pain. But I must not lose me while I'm doing it.
With success, Nancy's reputation grew. Soon, she was being called in on murder cases. But tapping into the psychic energy of a violent crime is a painful personal experience.
It's three-dimensional, it's in color, only you are standing in the scene. The color is often stronger and more vivid than real life. When I'm doing the murder scene, that vividness is a real problem because it is almost larger than life. It's like looking at a big screen movie that I'm in the middle of. And that's sometimes frightening.
See, I felt he came out this door and then he took a right, which headed towards the back of the building. So, but this is quite a desolate area in here because I felt that he was coming out of the road.
Kathlyn Rhea on the path of a killer.
Yeah, I'd like to look around there.
Detectives listen intently to every word.
I heard a bell. Just assume we're the nearest church or the nearest bell that would ring.
Considerably off campus.
Yeah, because I don't feel like it was near where she was. I feel it's at a distance.
Like other psychic crime solvers, Kathlyn's visions are impressionistic, and it's up to the police to decipher the clues.
So I'm painting a picture. I first start by putting the different items in the picture, and then we have to find the focal point to go with that picture. I try to work just as methodical as the detectives do, and I just plug in the intuitive feelings to go with it to see if we can sharpen it any or narrow it down more.
Kathlyn has worked on hundreds of cases. Her clues have led police to killers, and more importantly, to their missing victims.
People ask me why I do this type of work. It's to give closure to those who are left behind that are suffering.
Greta Alexander wasn't born with psychic abilities. A freak accident as a child almost killed her, but it gave her second sight. For more than 20 years, she has used this gift to aid police departments across the country, revealing clues to help detectives track down arsonists, kidnappers, and murderers. To do this, she must look through the eyes of the victim.
You actually become her. You actually see these things that she's seen. And I will say I'm very frightened, I'm very afraid. I am underneath some bushes, and I will say I am, because I actually feel like that's me.
These gruesome visions sometimes become too overwhelming for Greta.
I don't work murder cases anymore, though. I've quit that. It's too hard on me. When you become a victim and you feel the pain.
Greta believes everyone has some form of psychic ability, even if they don't recognize it.
I think their abilities, everybody's got it. Everybody can play chopsticks. I can just happen to play Chopin.
He shot me. I know I'm on the floor, and my back seems to be hurting me a great deal, and I die.
Noreen Renier lived the first 30 years of her life unaware of her gift. But when a client sensed her abilities, Noreen's extrasensory perception quickly opened up.
It was like stepping on the moon once I entered into this. I could touch a ring or watch, and I could see pictures in my head.
Once she was comfortable with her abilities, Noreen decided to use them to help people. She focused on police work. Using the ability to read objects, Noreen became a valuable tool for detectives.
I see the way they see, because I'm not me anymore, I'm them. And sometimes I hurt very much when I'm being killed.
5 women, each has her own way of working. each has her own gift, each using their talents to help the police catch criminals. These are the best and most accurate psychics in America. Coming up, how did the police react to these psychics? We'll hear from seasoned officers risking their careers on a hunch.
She looked at the palm print and started telling us what happened.
The information that Greta gave us from start to finish was 100% accurate.
Kay said that when I found the body, there would be chickens. Chickens, chickens, chickens.
And the landmark case that opened up the eyes of detectives everywhere.
Police officers are the kind of guys that they gotta try it, test it, hold it, feel it, then they believe it.
We have to realize is that psychic ability, when it comes to the surface, is not that easy to deal with.
All that and our UnEx Report on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries. Psychic crime solvers. They exist in two different worlds. One believes in what they can see and touch. The other relies on visions and impressions. Detective work and psychic abilities. Their worlds only come together when a case is at a dead end. Greta Alexander is searching for a missing woman, the victim of a brutal homicide.
The closer we got to the bridge, the more I could feel her saying, like, come and get me, just come and get me.
Horrible images flash through her brain. A murder, a kidnapping, a violent death. Images that would disturb anyone. This is the curse of ESP. Greta Alexander's curse. One that began when she was struck by lightning.
I found that I was a different person. I found I could sense, I would know, and I would feel things that I never ever felt before.
At first, her psychic visions were dismissed by police. But as they recognized her accuracy, her credibility grew. It all began with a murder in Tazewell, Illinois.
Mary Cassetta and her boyfriend were traveling from Alton, Illinois to Peoria, just past the Mackinac River Bridge. The argument that had been building in the car reached a climax to a point where he pulled off to the side of the road. She was afraid of him. She bailed out of the vehicle, ran down the embankment.
The police arrested Mary's boyfriend. The problem, they couldn't find the body.
It was late in the fall when we started the search. The weather was extremely bad. It was freezing rain. There was a storm front moving in that would have covered the area with snow.
Making matters worse, an Illinois state law said if a body was not found within 120 days, the accused killer had to be released. Detectives were desperate. They had read about Greta Alexander and decided to take a chance.
I called Greta and I asked her a single question, if in fact a body was located in Tazewell County. She did in fact immediately say that yes, we had a body in Tazewell County.
Greta convinced the detectives to send her the suspect's handprint.
She looked at the palm print and started telling us what happened.
Greta was drawn to this bridge over the Mackinac River.
I could feel her, and as we stopped and as we looked over the bridge, you could feel her calling, and I could hear the children singing. She kept showing me the children singing, the children singing.
What happened next shocked the detectives and prosecutor working on the case. Greta began speaking as the murder victim.
And there was the fighting, and the arguing was unreal, and I just couldn't take anymore. And then I wanted out of the car. I wanted to get away. The car pulls over and I get out to run. And then, oh, my back, as I'm accosted. And I'm rolling down and down and down. And then my body comes to a rest.
But not even the victim could tell police where she was.
She took out a map of the state of Illinois and circled 3 areas in red. She also gave us a series of clues. She said, if I were Mary, these are the things that I would see.
And then there was like an old schoolhouse, and the kids were in these long dresses.
She said that the body was near a schoolhouse. We did, in fact, find that location of the school. The only thing left is the water pump that had been in front of the school in the playground area. The school itself has been long gone.
Once the detectives learned how to decipher Greta's visions, her clues led them to the body of Mary Cousette.
One of the things that Greta had mentioned to us was that from the body location, you could hear dogs barking and children singing. I got to the scene, went down the embankment, and as I'm kneeling next to the body, I hear dogs barking and children singing. There was a church camp located on the opposite side of the hill from our location.
The case opened up the eyes of police agencies across the country. A psychic could be a valuable asset in an unsolved crime.
The information that Greta gave us from start to finish was 100% accurate. Nothing she told us was not correct.
Police officers are the kind of guys that they gotta try it, test it, hold it, feel it, then they believe it. I feel like that if I can give them one little helping hand, just one little thing that will help turn the corner for them, then I have done much.
Coming up on Unexplained Mysteries, a detective with nowhere to turn.
We've pursued many leads that have led us nowhere.
A mother desperate for answers.
You're haunted every moment that you live and breathe.
And the shocking psychic revelation.
He knew who did it.
We'll talk to the skeptics.
The psychic part of this was just way off. It didn't make sense.
The grieving family members.
All you can think about is how could this possibly happen to your child?
And the psychic who brings hope.
I'm experiencing it right along with the victim. It's like a movie in my head.
In an exclusive case study, we'll investigate a murder spree in the desert.
We have a serial killer, we believe, out there that is going to strike again.
We'll talk to the psychic who vows to put it to an end.
I'm going to come after you until I take you.
And tie it all up in the UnEx Report. Unexplained Mysteries. Psychic Crime Solvers. Unexplained Mysteries. Psychic Crime Solvers.
It's very clear to me. I'm experiencing it right along with the victim. It's like a movie in my head.
Nancy Myer is a witness to a murder. She observed every detail and heard every scream, but she was nowhere near the scene of the crime. She saw Skipper Parker's murder in a vision.
Haunted every moment that you live and breathe. All you can think about is how or why. How could this possibly happen to your child? You try to protect them and do everything you can to take care of that child. And then one moment, someone can just take that all away from you.
Skipper was buried, but his killer was never found. Detective John Barrow had exhausted every lead.
It would appear that this young man was on the way to work. While in his truck, he was fired on by some unknown assailant. One of those projectiles struck and killed him.
Up to now, the police have, I think, to the best of their abilities, done what they can, given with the resources that they have available to them. And it's been tough for our family because we want the answer and we want it now.
We've pursued many leads that have led us nowhere, and we've pursued some leads that have given us some information, but certainly not any that has led to the identification of the suspects in the case. The case is still open, the case is still unsolved.
Detective Barrow had been working the case for months with nothing to show for it. Then, Skipper's family read an article about Nancy Myer. They called the Greensboro Homicide Division and asked them to talk with her.
I hope that Nancy Myer can pick up something that they're missing. A clue, a vibration, whatever it takes to solve this crime.
I've never worked with a psychic in a criminal investigation or in any way. This was first proposed by the family. My position with the family has been that if this is something they want to do and it's not interfering with the investigation, then I think it's a position of me as investigator, and the Greensboro Police Department will accommodate them any way we can.
Nancy is given access to the crime scene photos. This is where her visions begin.
There's energy in every murder scene. When I look at stacks of photos of a murder scene, I am not trying to look at this poor, battered body. What I'm looking for is somewhere when that photographer moved all the way around the body, he stood exactly where the killer was at a moment when the killer was open. Bam, I'm in there.
Nancy's first impression shocked everyone involved in the case.
He knew who did it. This was not random. It may look random, but actually it seems like a sort of a running conflict. Money's involved.
Images continue to flow. Nancy describes what she sees to detectives.
And he's looking at the driver, and there's a passenger, and there is someone in the back seat. There are 3 young men there.
After studying the photos, she paints a portrait of the killer.
There's some schooling in common between the two of them. There's a ring on his right hand that looks like a heavy class ring. And the conflict between the shooter and the victim started way back. He seems to have been very jealous of the victim, jealous of the friendliness of the victim, jealous of the victim's success with young ladies.
I think she's intuitive, and I think she's perceptive. There are some perceptions, perhaps, that are similar to some information that we already have available, but the accuracy of the information provided will only be borne out based on the investigation.
Barrow is skeptical, but he isn't going to rule anything out. He continues to follow up leads, and Nancy is confident that he will catch Skipper's killer.
They've got 2 very good cops on this. You got 2 bloodhounds. They're great. They'll go after it. They're going to dig and dig and dig.
Coming up on Unexplained Mysteries, Psychic Crime Solvers. A killer who has police from 3 states baffled.
It's very frustrating. You start wondering, what else can you do? What can you do?
We have a serial killer, we believe, out there that is going to strike again.
This is what happened to this girl. This is who did it to her. This is what he looks like.
The disturbing case study, Deadly Abduction.
And she's frightened everybody. She knows he's violent. Could be a very violent person.
It was a situation that I'll never forget as long as I live.
I didn't believe it. But after 5 minutes with her, she told me enough stuff that she had 100% of my attention.
And the UnEx Report, all on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Psychic Crime Solvers. In the Nevada desert, a woman's body is found. Two hikers made the grisly discovery. Detective Bill Schultz takes the call.
When we got out there, we found a white female, unidentified, completely stripped of all her clothing, jewelry, and had been killed by a gunshot.
She is known only as Jane Doe. A sketch is released to the press, but no one comes forward to identify her. Jane Doe is buried, but not forgotten. Detective Schultz was determined to find out who she was and who had killed her. he sent out a description of the murder to other police agencies. Within days, he got calls from homicide detectives in Juab and Millard, Utah. They too had their own Jane Doe murders.
Okay, I'll show you where our girl was found.
After comparing clues, a pattern seemed to emerge. Young female victims shot with a small caliber handgun, stripped naked. They now felt that a serial killer was using their desert as a hunting ground.
The scenes are almost identical. The way their hair was pulled up underneath them, the way their heads were turned, the way their hands were laid out in a particular fashion, the way their feet were laid out in a particular fashion.
We feel very strongly that the bodies were in fact posed, that there are some things that are not natural with the way the bodies were positioned.
Making the case more difficult was that none of the women had been reported missing, and none could be identified.
It's very frustrating. You start wondering, you know, what else can you do? What can you do?
The police were at a dead end. With nothing to lose, they call in psychic Dorothy Allison.
He does pose as either a security guard or a policeman. He does not pose as a trucker that he may be. That's what is so shocking to the girls, because they think they were the police officer, and they don't expect this to happen. They're more or less in a state of shock when he starts attacking them.
The detectives are skeptical, but she soon revealed something that only they knew.
I was told this girl was shot, and that was all I was told. But I got a feeling about the throat. There's something wrong with the throat, whatever that may be. I don't know. Maybe the police could, you know, sort of let me know what I feel about that throat.
Well, the only problem I have with that is that has never been released, and I, you know, I mean, that's a lead for us, and there was something, yeah, something was done on the throat.
The detectives aren't ready to give out any information, but Dorothy had clearly gotten their attention with her accuracy.
I feel that this man stays mostly in the area of Utah and Nevada, although he's been to Portland and a place that's called Castle Rock or something like that.
You said something about Castle Rock?
Yes.
Castledale?
Something with castle in it. Any name that has castle in it, he hangs there.
Dorothy picks up on two key pieces of information from the murders. The detectives are stunned.
The place she was found is on I-70, out of Castledale. As I understand it, she was last seen when they did ID her in Portland, Oregon.
Dorothy talks for 2 hours, with the detectives hanging on her every word.
He sometimes travels with a dog in the car. He likes dogs.
Do you see, I mean, is it anything about any oddities about the animals that you see?
You mean like one leg off or something?
Yeah. We're looking for somebody in a vehicle with a three-legged, what we believe is possibly a Rottweiler. The vehicle was also seen up in this area at about the time of the discovery of this body.
At the Elko Police Department, Dorothy describes the killer to a sketch artist.
So is that long enough right there?
Mm-hmm.
When Detective Kolsch sees the sketch, he's shocked.
All right, when we were looking for an individual in a station wagon, that we had a witness here in Elko who had seen this individual. That person drawn is very, very similar in description as that individual right there. That's the guy we're looking for with the dog.
Within just a few hours, Dorothy Allison convinces the detectives.
Saying I was skeptical is putting it mildly, but Dorothy told us some things today, things that came to her that somewhat take me back, and that's to put that mildly.
There were some things that she had said while we were out at the scene that has never been public or made public.
Things that were only known by the four of us and or people within our own agency or sheriffs.
She gave some names and some businesses and stuff, and that I think really need to be followed up on.
Since the detectives last talked to Dorothy, one of the murders has been solved. And while it was unrelated to the other cases, they haven't lost hope that one day they will track down the Jane Doe killer. Next on Unexplained Mysteries, a desperate family calls on a psychic to locate their missing daughter.
I was dreaming about what can I do, what other avenues can I go? And it came to me in the dream.
The detective who went out on a limb.
The psychic part of this was just way off. It didn't make sense to me.
These feelings are something I've educated, like you've educated your other senses, to where I can use them more fully.
And the clue that would break the case.
It was a situation that I'll never forget as long as I live.
She stopped me, she grabbed my arm, and she said, "Tim, find the dog and you'll find Victoria."
We'll open all the case files in our UnEx Report, coming up on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Psychic Crime Solvers. Fresno, California, nestled in the San Joaquin Valley, farms stretch out as far as the eye can see. A shocking crime took place here. 9-year-old Victoria de Santiago and her younger sister Eva were kidnapped along with their dog. They had gone to the store to buy a loaf of bread.
The counterman said that he remembers the girls coming in and he told them to go out because they couldn't bring the dog in.
But no one knows for sure what happened next.
What we figured is that perhaps whoever this individual was there in the parking lot.
Somehow, a strange man lured the girls into his car. 2 days later, little Eva is found. Victoria and the dog still missing.
She was a very beautiful little girl. She was always very protective of her sister. She said that her sister told the man to let her go and that she would stay. And so from that, I know that she was just a very good person.
The police canvassed the area, but no one had seen anything.
In my sleep, I was dreaming about what can I do, what other avenues can I go? And it came to me in the dream. I mean, I sat right up, and her name was Kathlyn Rhea.
Kathlyn Rhea is one of the most respected psychic crime solvers in the country. Even with all her experience, Sergeant Tim McFadden had a hard time accepting the idea.
I was told that a psychic was being brought in and I was going to fly to San Jose to meet this psychic. And I thought, I'm going to fly up there and I'm going to meet this lady wearing gypsy clothes. She's going to take me into this house. We're going to burn some incense. We're going to rattle some bones. She's going to throw some dust around in the air and tell me something that's totally irrelevant to the case.
Intuition is something that everybody has. And the intuitive sense is a sense of feeling. But these feelings are something I've educated, like you've educated your other senses, to where I can use them more fully.
The psychic part of this was just way off. It didn't make sense to me. How somebody 180 miles from here is going to tell me how to find a body in my town.
It's really taking feelings up and bringing a whole picture and holding that picture long enough. Just like going to a movie or turning the TV on and seeing a picture in front of your face.
I didn't believe it. But after 5 minutes with her, she told me enough stuff that she had 100% of my attention. I was believing in her.
The De Santiago family had no doubts. They put all their faith in Kathlyn.
All I could think of asking her was, you know, did she have to go through a lot of pain?
I felt that Victoria at this point was still barely alive, just barely.
If Victoria was still alive, every minute was essential. McFadden had to trust Kathlyn.
She told me the road she was on was not a well-traveled road.
I saw this plowed field. I knew the field had just been plowed.
They said she's laying parallel to the road. I feel she's laying parallel to the road with her face towards the road.
I'll see the bushes, the trees, the poultry farm.
Kay said that when I found the body, there would be chickens. She said, I get chickens around the body. Chickens, chickens, chickens.
There has to be a farmer whose name starts with an S. There has to be a street that starts with an L. There has to be a windmill.
After my interview with Kay, as I was walking out the door, and I'll never forget this, she stopped me. She grabbed my arm, and she said, Tim, find the dog, and you'll find Victoria.
At the same time, back in Fresno, a farmer reported finding the dog. Sergeant McFadden's partner responded to the scene.
Detective Popejoy was at the house where the dog was found. He verified it was the dog. So I asked Detective Popejoy, I said, well, are there chickens out there?
So I asked the farmer there, I said, is there a poultry ranch here? He said, yes, just south of here, about a quarter of a mile, there's a abandoned poultry ranch.
Detective Popejoy, he got the call on the dog, and he came out here and talked to the farmer that found the dog, and he found it down here a little ways and brought it back to this house. And when I was talking to him on the phone, he said there was no windmill.
It was a situation that I'll never forget as long as I live, was him on the phone to me, and we are talking about this windmill, and I'm telling him there's no windmill here, and the landowner standing behind me said, oh yeah, you just walk by one, it's in the front yard.
As I'm telling him things that should be there, and he's confirming these back to me that Kay said would be there, I'm getting higher and higher. And wow, this gal does know what she's talking about.
We immediately called for officers to respond, and it was from him telling me what she saw 145 miles away.
Following the clues Kathlyn had given, the police narrow the search. The street must start with an L. Leonard Street. The farmer's last name begins with an S. There is an S on the mailbox. And when her body was found, it was laying parallel to the road, her head facing it, just as Kathlyn had predicted.
And she was still alive, in a coma, suffering right there in the little trench. And Kathlyn Rhea found that, as she described it, to the T.
By the time authorities arrived, Victoria had died. The case is still open. The killer has yet to be found. But McFadden hasn't given up. With Kathlyn's help and some good detective work, it's just a matter of time.
I believe it could be solved. Somebody out there, somebody somewhere has got to know more about this, but they've never come forward.
And for the De Santiago family, finding their daughter lets them rest a little easier.
Thank you, God. Thank you for finding Victoria's body. Thank you for giving me Kathlyn Rhea.
Next on Unexplained Mysteries, the UnEx Report. Are these psychic crime solvers really using ESP to solve crimes? Or is there some other explanation? For family members, it's easy to believe. A psychic brings hope where there is none. But for the police officers and detectives who rely on more conventional solutions, the jury is still out. We'll put all the pieces together in our UnEx Report. Next on Unexplained Mysteries. Unexplained Mysteries, Psychic Crime Solvers. The UnEx Report. When it comes to psychic crime solvers, there will always be skeptics. The law enforcement community isn't convinced. And even today, the use of a psychic on a case can be controversial.
I didn't want the public to get the wrong impression that John Swan uses psychics to do all his rescue.
Sometimes the family asks to bring in a psychic.
My position with the family has been that if this is something they want to do and it's not interfering with the investigation, the Greensboro Police Department will accommodate them any way we can.
The reason is always the same.
We've pursued many leads that have led us nowhere.
You start wondering, what else can you do? What can you do?
But overcoming reason and common sense isn't easy.
The psychic part of this was just way off. It didn't make sense to me.
Police officers are the kind of guys that they got to try it, test it, hold it, feel it, then they believe it.
And then there is that moment that changes everything.
I could hear the children singing. She kept showing me the children singing. The children singing.
She took out a map of the state of Illinois and circled 3 areas in red.
He sometimes travels with a dog in the car. He likes dogs.
Do you see, I mean, is it anything about any oddities about the animals that you see?
You mean like one leg off or something?
That's the guy we're looking for with the dog, the individual with the dog.
After 5 minutes with her, she's told me enough stuff that she had 100% of my attention. I was believing in her.
The cases aren't always solved. The clues don't always make sense. Not every skeptic can be convinced.
We don't know how it works. I mean, if we did, it wouldn't be mysterious.
These women have heard it all. They know what most people think of them. But they keep helping. They keep providing hope.
People ask me why I do this type of work. It's to give closure to those who are left behind that are suffering.
If I can give them just one little thing that will help turn the corner for them, then I have done much.
It's like a game with me now. I love getting a killer. I really do.
And there's only a light shining out of total darkness. You're going to walk towards that light. Whether it's the wrong way, the right way, it doesn't matter. It's a direction.
When the logical fails, sometimes the supernatural can provide answers and solve crimes. Exactly how it works, nobody knows. So for now, that must remain an unexplained mystery.
On Crime Stories.
We had all these women, they'd all disappeared.
It was quite a shock to us, obviously, to find out about these websites.
He held himself out as some kind of a master.
There were discussions about people being kidnapped and taken into sex slavery.
Crime Stories, tomorrow at 8, only on Bio.